Hey guys, Boomfish TCG here, back at it again with another video. And this time we're coming back with a different class. I know we've been shaking things up quite a few times recently, but this is one that I'm actually quite proud of how popular it became in Japan, and I think there's some real legs here. Very, very strong support cards that have come out recently and for Pixies and Fairies. And it almost seems every set that has come out, they've really tried to give this deck more and more to work with. So I'm actually very excited to cover what this deck does. Starting off, naturally, we're going to go with the 1-drops. Very easy fairy circle. Give you a little bit of context with this deck. It wants to put fairies in the EX and buff them. So the fact that this card for 1 mana generates 3 tokens that you're going to take advantage of is naturally exactly what the deck wants to do. So it plays 3. It needs 3 of these in the deck because it's just so strong. And if they see it at the beginning of the game, it's really hard to keep up with that. If it's in conjunction with a lot of its other power cards, sometimes this deck can really get too fast paced for you to be able to keep up with, but it's pretty dependent on some other stuff to pop up, and we'll get there. So natural 3 of, very strong card. Moving on, we have Intertwined Resolve. So this is naturally one of the split support cards that most every craft got during set 12, and this one's between Natura and the Fairies. So you have the option to put a Natura card from field into the EX, and then you ping something for 3. That's not what we really care about here, but something that's really broken for 1 mana. 1 mana, summon 2 fairy tokens. Now, naturally, this deck loves and abuses fairy tokens. So the fact that this thing summons 2 of them, you will find, is very good. And that means that this is another high quality card, but just stellar for what the deck wants to do later in the game. This can often mean that you're summoning 2 2/2s because those cards will then get buffed by other effects, and you might be able to give them Storm. So off of 1 card generating 2 tokens, very, very good. And for so cheap, you cannot be disappointed by this card. So this is very, very good. Nature's Guidance, although it is a very strong forest staple, it being run at 3 sometimes is at the cost of what decks want to do. I know some forest players who are not the biggest fan of this card, although I am. So seeing this at a reduced ratio is not that big of a surprise. But 2 Nature's Guidance is very easy to fit into a deck. You can also just run 1 if you really hate the card. But when it comes up, and when you're able to reuse a card that you need that's necessary, like let's say Amataz, which we'll cover later, being able to play it, bounce, play it again, is so strong. And this deck has so many powerful fanfares that Nature's Guidance works so well. This card works amazingly in every version of Forest because it's just such a cheap card to play. But the things that you get to take advantage of in this deck are just very central to what this card provides. But 3 might get a bit excessive. You don't have the cycling that you'd get access with Natura to be able to discard this card when you don't need it. And there's a good amount of hands where you don't. So yeah, still a very, very crazy card. So yeah, very good. We have Spirit Shine. So this is kind of like a hybrid card. It does a lot of what you need. So for 1 mana, you get to choose between 2 effects. So either you get to choose a Pixie and give it +2/+2, or you put 2 fairy tokens into your EX. So it's not as good as Fairy Circle, but it still gets you tokens. And in the moments that you don't need tokens, it's 1 mana, give something +2/+2, or 1 mana equals 2 damage. I'd pay 1 for 2 damage. And to make something buffed like this is really, really good. Obviously, it's not as good as Fairy Circle, so that's why we're only playing 2 of it. And the other effect is simply conditional, so it makes sense. But again, another high quality card. Can't really complain about this. And then on to obviously a really good forest card, but it's kind of waned in how strong it is and how necessary it is for a lot of forest decks to win. It's here at 1 because sometimes that burst damage can be used and abused. And that one time that you get an emergency 5/5 to hit them in the face is pretty good, but it won't always matter. So, yeah. But Sakuna is still really, really good. But it's just kind of getting crapped out by other high quality fairy direct support cards. And this is not that. This is something that takes advantage of cheap cards for high combo for a beefy stat, but that's about all it does. And if you see this in your opening hand going first, it's about the worst card you could see at that moment. There are other bad cards that are in the game, but like, think about it. If you had to play this as a 1 mana 1/1 and that's it, sorry, man. And even if you saw it early game and you aggressively evoed it to hit them in the face for 2, that's not cutting it these days. I'm sorry. But, it's at 1. He gets the flexibility out of this. Moving on to the 2 costs. There are a lot of these, folks. We have 9, 8, plus 2. So, 9 plus 8, 17, 19 2-cost cards in the entire deck. Wow. That just shows you how cheap this deck is in order to get its initial condition off. And the fact that that's all it requires to win the game sometimes is really good. So I'm excited to cover the new support cards because they're just so strong. Probably one of the 2 that annoy me the most, and we're going to get to the other one, is Fade Bolt Archer. Let's read this, please. Summon a fairy token. Alright, that's what you already want to do. And the fact that it summons it, doesn't put it in the EX, that's all you care about, folks. And then the other part is you take a look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may reveal a pixie card from among them, which that is a very large amount these days. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the cards in this deck are pixies. We'll cover them. It can even hit itself, which is pretty good. You may reveal a pixie card from among them, add it to your hand. So this is a 2 mana 3/2 in Detached Bodies, which was already good in plenty of other card games, including Shadowverse. And then on top of that, it has the chance to quote-unquote draw you a card specifically and also check the top 3, which is good because you're digging deeper into your deck. This is incredible. It's great in the early game. That's when you want to see it. Naturally, it's not very flexible when it comes later, but yeah, I mean, like, that's really good. Imagine this plus, like, Spirit Shine. You get to buff up the fairy token early. That's nice. You can trade it off. Yeah, this is really, really good. Won't necessarily help you, or it won't win you the game past, like, turn 5 or 6. But, like, you seeing this on turn 2, regardless of which turn you go, is just so good. Like, my God. And the one that really pisses me off is this thing. It's called Fairy Slugger, alright? 2 mana, 2/2. Who cares, right? Who cares? Let's see what it evos. It's only cost 1, so you can do this 2 going second on turn 2. On Evo, put a Fairy Wisp and a Fairy token into your EX. Folks, they used to have to pay 4 mana for this. And this is coming out on 2. Alright, so put a Fairy Wisp, which costs 0, which is the best card, the best thing they want to generate in the entire deck, naturally, because it's a 0 cost. So on turn 2, you're already getting what you need to win the game. And then if you happen to get 3 Pixie followers in your EX, you gain 2 life. Bushi, that didn't need to happen. You're telling me that the aggressive combo deck gets to help itself out by not dying? Like, one of the major counters to this, it could be like Ignorant Burn or like another aggressive combo deck. But the fact that they get rewarded for the thing they already want to do, generating tokens. Are you kidding me? And then on 2, they get this 0 cost token, which didn't used to happen. This is an incredible card. And the fact that they got it, last set? I mean, like, come on, guys. You will be opening your prize packs and seeing this card and tossing it aside. But I'm telling you, the fairy players, the ones that have stuck through it and played this deck every single format, because there are so many of those guys, for some reason, they love this. And the fact that this set, I've seen so many of them pop off in Japan because it was very popular. Apparently it kind of waned in strength as the formats went on because people were able to adjust. But my goodness, man, I think that card's so crazy. So yeah, very, very good. Not much to say here. I think this card's incredible. We have Fairy Dragon, another really good card. So this gains +1 for every pixie token on your field and in your EX. Let's say, for instance, you started out the turn. Turn 1, you played Fairy Circle. You have 3 pixie tokens in your EX. Interesting. And then you play this 2-mana 0/4. It is now a 2-mana 3/4. A stat line that has yet to exist. Awesome. And if it dies, you get punished by them getting the best card in their deck of Fairy Wisp in their EX. This is the best thing that ever could have happened to this deck, and it came out in set 6. If you see your opponent doing this in an advantageous spot to it, and you have no way of banishing this card, there is a very good chance that this alone will make you lose the game. Let alone what the rest of the game's going to entail. This card's crazy. But if they don't have the buff, if it's mediocre and they only get like a 2/4, or let's say they didn't even get that and they're just playing it with 0 attack, it's still good because of the Fairy Wisp. The Fairy player almost doesn't care what happens to this card as long as it dies, because they're getting exactly what they want. Now, a potential counterplay to this is to, if it has a low enough amount of attack where you can excuse getting hit by it, there's a pretty strong way of playing around it by simply not killing it. Not giving him those 2 tokens means that their buffs, their like blanket buffs on their EX, miss out on the ones that this will generate. And you get to pick when that happens. The only problem is, this deck wants to deal damage to you. I'm telling you that as a counterplay because I think I've had to do it a few times in the past. But I'm not sure if that cuts it anymore these days. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I think this card's crazy. The only reason they're not playing 3 of this in this list is because for some ungodly reason, Bushi has given them a reason not to, which is crazy. But like, that's just how it is. Because this card exists. Disgusting. Anywho, we have Blessed Fairy Dancer, a card that's existed from set 1. I hope it's bad. For 2 mana, you get a 2/3, so an incredibly statted 2 mana card. It's exactly what you want. For your fanfare, you give +1/+1 to each other pixie follower on your field and your EX. Yeah. If the fairy player gets multiple copies of this after playing a fairy circle in the early points of the game, there's a very good chance, if they play it, and then let's say they have Nature's Guidance. So for turn 1, they played Fairy Circle. Gotcha. Turn 2, they played Blessed Fairy Dancer. All right, we're off to a good start here. Turn 3, they hit you in the face with the Fairy Dancer. And then they play Nature's Guidance, bounce the Fairy Dancer back to the hand, draw a card. Okay. And then they play Fairy Dancer again. They have 3 3/3s in the EX on turn 3. We are now reaching a dangerous territory. And at that point in the game, they do not care what happens to the Blessed Fairy Dancer. They're not going to keep abusing it. But, like, that's a crazy start. Again, this came out from set 1, so Bushi's wanted this deck to play like this from that set. and it's been insane ever since. It's so good. It's such a good part of what this deck wants to do. So if you see this in your hand, naturally you're keeping it. If you see multiple copies, you're really not mad, but it doesn't help out with card advantage. But doing it with Nature's Guidance specifically is such an annoyingly good spot for them. If you have the chance to remove it, it's okay. Like, it'll certainly stop the play that I just described from happening. But again, they don't care about it. They threw it out there because it's already helping them. At no point in the game is this card ever bad. So that's crazy for a 2-drop. We then move on to Amata's Fairy Blader. So this guy's been crazy ever since he initially came out. And he's got a better effect than Fairy Dancer. So he generates a token and then buffs the EX. So that's already crazy. And you don't want to do this turn 2 because unless you're like forced to, which is really bad actually, because it has such an insane other effect of select other like 2 other pixie followers and you tap and give them Storm. Naturally, this can actually target like actual followers instead of just tokens. But I'm pretty sure there are no good ones for them to play, so that's the reason why that's not too notable right now. And yeah, but like what this is part of your endgame plan of just playing an Amataz. You give 2 pixie followers Storm, hit them, so you've already buffed them up, and you already buffed them up off of this effect. If you have Wisps associated with this whole play, you're going to be able to do like initial burst damage that's really hard for your opponent to keep up with. And naturally, if you just so happen to have Nature's Guidance and along with that, you get to remove the point of that play. Like, you get to remove the weakness of that play. Of your Amata sticking around and your opponent able to remove it, so then you're stopped from doing more burst damage. But the minute you're able to return it back to your hand, draw a card, you're able to plan for more burst and potentially make some really insane plays later on. So yeah, this is a stellar card. It's been a stellar card ever since set 6 came out, and it's very hard to compete with what this card does for the deck. Like, naturally, it's incredible. We have new Amataz. I bet you weren't expecting this. So new Amataz is a 2-mana 2/2 ward. Pretty unnotable. Not that crazy sounding, but let's see what his Evo does. I think his Evo is absolutely insane. So select an enemy follower on the field, and if you have 3 cards in your EX, which is what the deck's trying to do, you get to blow it up. Nice. And if you have 3 pixie cards, which is exactly what the deck's doing already, you get to ping them in the face. So let's recap what we just said. We have a basically unconditional destruction effect, along with a basically guaranteed ping effect when the deck was already trying to kill them by dealing them massive burst damage. So this thing gets rid of a problem card and ranges them for your big turns later. This is insane. This is... If you play against a fairy player, chances are throughout the game, they will actually cycle out all 3 of these if they really get them, right? If they have access to it, they're doing it because there's no punishment for them to. It's so strong. Yeah. I'm speaking from experience, actually, because, like, that's happened to me. No matter how big of stats that you're putting in order to answer their pressure, the minute you do, Amataz comes out. It's dead. Wow, you get pinged in the face. And then it gets to further trade out for anything that you had to rush in. And this is all happening for 2 mana and an Evo point, or 3 mana total. This is insane. This is an absolutely crazy card. At no point in the game will the opponent who's currently playing Fairies, will they not be in this condition because they can actively plan for it And if you're playing up against a good fairy player, they're never going to be at the spot where this is a disadvantageous card. So, like, this card's crazy. Um, we move on to the 2 token amulets of the deck. They do not want to draw these cards, but through the new, well, I think it's Aria, they get to summon them out from the deck. So, like, that's really crazy. And you'll see that they're super good. The fact they get them out for free is just okay. So we get Titania's Sanctuary. This card's been out since, I think, the structure deck, yeah? So for 2 mana, you buff everything on your field. So all the tokens. And you might be thinking, well, you know, you're not really going to have them on the field. Well, that doesn't matter because it has a continuous effect whenever one is put onto the field. Not only do all your tokens have a sale, but also then they're buffed. So if they did not get buffed by that initial one, you don't care because every subsequent one you're putting out is now getting buffed. And then you get to add Storm along with them. It's crazy. And then if you need to trade them in, oh wow, all of a sudden they have a sale, so you don't really care if stuff's not tapped. Titania's Sanctuary is an incredible card. They're only playing one because it's searchable, but in the past, this used to be like something they'll just throw on the field and take advantage of later. So the fact that they get it out for free makes it incredible, but it's understandable why there's only one. And this card also kind of makes me mad, gonna be honest. There's quite a few cards in here that kind of irk me the wrong way. So when you bring this out, you get a fairy token, sure. Bury this card, draw 2, and you can only activate it. Folks, stay with me now. If there are at least 3 pixie followers in your EX. I wonder if that's difficult. No, I think that's pretty easy. Bushi, did it have to be 2? Are we living in an era where Pixie needed to draw 2 cards for free? Didn't have to pay anything either. I hate this card. There's so much of this deck that I hate because I know it's really good. It's the minute they're down on card advantage from their combos, they get to, in an emergency situation, draw 2. Of course this is really good. Of course they only want to play 1 because naturally, again, they get to play it from deck for free. But man, this makes me mad. Because I just wish stuff like this. They've given Fairy such broken support when there are plenty of other deck archetypes that are just struggling for an inkling of the power that this card has. But, yeah, naturally it's incredible. And this, we're getting to the part where the amulets actually matter. So, this, in every part of itself, is a crazy card. So, keep that in mind. 3 mana, 3/3. It has the first effect of not being able to be played from the EX. You don't care, right? You don't care about that. It evos for 1. While this card is on your field or EX, each pixie token that you have has Rush. To get that for free is insane. Just to give it something else to do. You put a fairy token in your EX. Lovely. Sometimes this matters, okay? If you're the fairy player, make sure you have the space for this when it dies. Because when this dies, you put it into your EX. So that's basically an amulet that sticks around that has a continuous effect that you absolutely abuse in this deck. But there are some times where you will go so nuts that by the time you play this, you don't actually have space for it. And you're planning on making space for it next turn. If your opponent can take advantage of that and just kill this for you, that's really bad. That could actually be like a huge point in the game actually turning against you. I think that's going to be rare, but keep that in mind. And then as if this card didn't already have some stellar things attached to it, if you evo it, you search your deck for a pixie amulet that costs 2 or less and you summon it. Okay. All right. Yeah, that's crazy, man. So, like, you get this one for free, which is just buffs. Your things will inherently have rush already, and now they have a sale. So, at any point in the game that you find is disadvantageous to you, you get to trade things out and make it better. Or if you're at a bad point, or if your hand is already good and you just want some card advantage, wow, two cards just showed up into your hand. And it generated one. Okay, like yeah, it's pretty crazy. And God, is it tiring? Because it's so good. When this initially came out, I'm gonna be honest, I was completely underestimating what this card actually brought up for the deck. But it's just so much good for the deck, even if the rush isn't what your deck is initially trying to do. That doesn't matter because now it's given your deck the purpose it needed. You get to trade out. Wow, that wasn't really what the deck was doing. It was a burst, right? And you might be like, wow, you're going to be expending the tokens that you spent so much time buffing. You're right. But if doing that ensures that you win the game, isn't that what you wanted to do in the first place? Like, keep that in mind. Yeah, this is really good. And in my experience, I underestimated this, which I don't think that was appropriate on my part, but that's me. Then we have Spinaria. Naturally, this was an incredible card for every single forest deck that existed. And on top of that, not only does it play into the combo aspect of it, it gives you a little bit of healing. Uh, that the healing part is kind of whatever, but the fact that you get to recycle stuff that you've already expended is really good. It lets you build into your combo plays. That's really good. I guess my only con is sometimes you might not have the space in your EX to make this work, but naturally your tokens are so cheap you can probably avoid that. And I think that's why he's only playing two, because unfortunately, even though that it's a very strong card, uh, there's not always the space to make it relevant. But it's really good, right? As we talked about, we have 19 two-cost cards in our deck, although two of them are not achievable off of this card. So most of your deck is in point. Like, imagine you just, for three, right? You were able to generate a free fairy dragon. So you have a ward again, and when it dies, you get the things that you want. That's really good. Also, to mention, and this is going to be hard for me to demonstrate to you, but for an effect like Fairy Dragon, if you have 4 out of your 5 EX spots taken up, right, you don't really have the space for both sides of this effect, you can still resolve this, right? You can choose the order in which they pop out. So essentially, if you really wanted the Wisp, which is naturally what you're going to want, you then get to choose to spawn that one first, and then the fairy one, consider it in the invisible 6th zone. And off of that, it will not appear, right? Imagine it just like fizzles or disappears from reality. Yeah. So it's just for the fairy player. If you're playing up against this, it doesn't really matter unless their EX is full. Moving on to the forecast, we have Pierce Eye, Queen of the Frost. So this card's really cool. And as a forest player, it's not good in every forest deck because you do have to play quite aggressively in order for this to automatically evo. But whenever a follower on your field evos, you deal 1 damage to each leader and 2 damage to each follower, and you give +1. Having this automatically evo is really good because naturally it's going to trigger itself. And the only time this is super strong is if you get to combo with something else to evo in the same turn. Or if you get to prepare it, right? You might take a little bit of retaliatory damage if you weren't able to clear their whole board. But on your next turn, being able to evo, have a nice developed board, you're probably going to be able to take control of the game at that point. But you do have to play quite aggressively with your evos, which naturally, as you've seen such high quality ones that have popped up, like let's say Fairy Slugger or Amataz and Aria, and that's pretty much it actually. So there's not as many evos as most other fairy variants or forest variants would be would have in order to take advantage of this card. But naturally, it's not bad. Even if you have to pay for the evo, I mean that's pretty good. Healing one, pinging them in the face, so you're ranging them again, and you get to do a mini board clear that on your next turn will just happen again. Nothing about that is bad. So it's a good card. I guess I was just expecting a few more Evo followers in the list. But yeah, that's just bringing things into context for me. And maybe that's why the early Spinaria or the early Sakuna is here, because getting the early Evo out going second not only helps range them, but will help prepare you for when this card actually becomes relevant. So yeah, pretty good. And as your secondary ender to the deck, we have Cynthia, the Queen's Blade. So you only play 2 of this because it is 6 cost, and that's outside of the range of things that you normally want to depend on. You'll draw into this, and it will be relevant, but you don't want, you don't want 3. The dex can, performs well enough to, and you should have enough consistency in order to find this, just off of natural card draw abilities. Notably, it's not a pixie, so you can't grab it off of this effect. We got that. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, so there's quite a lot. And not the Amatazes. There's quite a few cards you grab off of Fable, but it's not this one. But that's still not that bad or relevant. This coming out creates a Fairy Wisp, which naturally is the one that you want to abuse. And it gives each fairy token on your field +2 attack, which that won't really be, if you have tokens already stuck around before you put this on the field, yeah, that's not really, it shouldn't really happen. And if you do, you're probably winning the game already. But every other part of this effect is incredible. So while this is on the field, each pixie token on your field has Storm and Assail. So if you play them out, naturally they get Storm. And whenever you put a pixie token onto your field, you get +2 attack to them. Which is crazy, because that means also, let's say turn 7 comes around, you have this, you play it, and then let's say you activate this card's effect to summon 2 fairy tokens. Wow. Naturally, you already have a Fairy Wisp, so it doesn't really take that much more for your previously buffed Fairy Wisps to all of a sudden become relevant and probably kill them at that point. Cynthia is a crazy card. I think the existence of Intertwined Resolve really helps boost what this deck's able to do, because just being able to summon 2 fairy tokens does so much for this deck, and you can abuse it so hard. I'm gonna be honest, and I might be blowing a little bit of smoke, but I think this fairy deck is crazy. I think it's so good. And even if it's not truly a 5 out of 5, I think the card quality that they've pumped into fairies truly cannot make this a bad deck for quite a while. I could be wrong, but fairies was relevant just as a way to scam games from your opponents that weren't prepared for how aggressive this deck gets. That this thing's going to be running numbers at locals for forever, I think. I think this is a 5 out of 5. I'm going to give this 5 Boomfish out of 5. I think it's an incredible deck, and I would not be surprised if I see this popping up at BCSs. You do have to be confident enough to pick this deck, because naturally there's so much flashy stuff that's part of this format. But I think this is a consistent deck. I think it's a strong deck, and I think there's a lot of reasons to pick it. And with that, I'm going to say, yep, thanks for checking the video out. Stay tuned for more forest decks, and thank you for sticking around.
Congratulations.